The cold at Vostok Station was the kind that stripped the world down to its bones. Winds carved across the plateau in long, hollow breaths, sweeping over the steel modules like something alive trying to get in. Even from inside the insulated lab, I could feel it. The weight of the continent, the silence beneath the ice, the pressure of 4,000 meters of frozen time. My name is Dr. Elias Warren, glaciologist, and, for reasons I would spend the rest of my days regretting, the first human being to touch the thing buried below Vostok. It began as a seismic anomaly, a routine vibrational reading that didn't match anything in the database. The graph didn't form a natural pattern. It formed angles, 6 of them, perfect, even, deliberate. Probably an instrument glitch, I had said into my recorder. But I didn't believe it. 3 days later, NASA dispatched a deep ice drilling team. They didn't tell us why the agency was suddenly interested in a Russian research territory. They didn't tell us why their equipment was flown in under military escort. They didn't tell us why their lead scientist refused to sleep and kept muttering about energy signatures that had no right to exist inside solid ice. We drilled anyway. By day 7, our borehole sensors began to show surface inconsistencies. Something metallic, something massive, something that reflected sonar like polished alloy. 4 kilometers down, our drilling tech, Harper whispered, staring at the playback. That shouldn't be possible. Metal doesn't just appear under ice this old. But it wasn't just metal. It was arranged. Look at that symmetry, she murmured, zooming in. That's a hexagonal perimeter. And those lines, they're too regular to be geological. We sent down a thermal probe. It lasted 3 minutes before the feed dissolved into static, and the cable snapped like something had sliced straight through it. That was when NASA's tone changed. Their quiet concern became urgency. Their subtle secrecy became suffocating silence. They locked down the lab, cut satellite uplinks, and began speaking in clipped orders and sealed lip whispers. No one was allowed to record. No one was allowed to transmit. Our lives became a countdown without explanation. On day 9, the drill broke through. At first, it sounded like a sigh, air escaping from a cavity that should not exist. The sensors lit up with readings that contradicted every physical law we understood. Temperatures rising, pressure dropping, radiation spikes in fractal pulses like a heartbeat. This isn't a cavity, Harper said quietly. It's an active chamber. NASA ordered a descent. Only 5 personnel were permitted to go down. Myself, Harper, Commander Ruiz, Engineer Malik, and Dr. Lena Voss, NASA's lead xenostructural specialist. The fact that her field existed should have told me everything. The descent platform lowered us slowly into the borehole. The walls of ice glowed faintly from the LED strips bolted to the rig, shimmering with colors that shouldn't exist in frozen water. Blues that rippled like breath, greens that pulsed in geometric rhythms. We're getting interference, Malik murmured, tapping the comm panel. Something down there is... His voice cut out the moment we breached the chamber. The space opened around us in a silent explosion of darkness and metal. Our lights hit the floor first, a smooth black surface, perfectly flat, unmarred by age or pressure. Then, the shape emerged. A hexagon. Massive. Perfect. Alien. It sprawled across the chamber floor like a giant metallic sigil, each of its 6 sides etched with lines that twisted and merged in patterns that felt like they were moving even when still. At the center stood a monolithic structure, nearly 30 feet tall, its surface a liquid-like alloy that shifted color depending on where you looked. Lena approached first. "This isn't a machine built by hands," she whispered. "It's grown, or printed, millions of years ago." "Millions?" Harper repeated. "Are you sure?" Lena didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the central structure. I stepped closer, shining my light along its surface. That was when I saw it, energy rippling beneath the metal like faint veins spreading outward. It was alive, not biological, but alive. My pulse thundered in my ears. "This can't be natural," Malik muttered. Something built this before Antarctica was even Antarctica." Ruiz circled the perimeter, checking structural integrity. "Stay alert. If this thing is active..." He never finished that sentence. A low vibration moved through the floor. Not loud, not aggressive, more like a breath or the hush of someone waking from a long sleep. The hexagonal pattern beneath our boots flickered with dim white light, lines illuminating in perfect, synchronized sequence. Lena turned to us slowly. "It's powering up." "What triggered it?" Harper asked. As if in answer, the pulse beneath the metal quickened. A deep hum filled the chamber, trembling through my bones. The lights brightened. The alloy rippled. The monolith's surface shifted from black to a dark, organic blue. My heart hammered. Something inside me whispered to step forward. So I did. Ignoring Ruiz's shout, I reached out and placed my gloved hand against the monolith's surface. The effect was instant. A shockwave of light burst outward from my touch, racing through the entire chamber in a fractal bloom. The floor illuminated beneath our feet. The walls rippled. The metal structure thrummed like a heartbeat, syncing itself with mine. Then, the ground beneath us moved, not shaking, rearranging. Corridors unfolded from the walls in spiraling patterns. Passages extended into impossible distances. The entire space shifted like a living organism adjusting to new stimuli. "It's opening," Lena whispered. "No," I said, my voice barely audible. "It's inviting." And as the first corridor lit up, stretching into blackness, something deeper in the structure stirred. Something that had been waiting, watching, and judging long before any humans stood beneath the Antarctic ice. Something that had just awakened. The corridor that unfolded in front of us was wrong in a way I had no vocabulary for. It didn't just extend, it recalculated itself as we watched. Surfaces smoothing and reconfiguring in silent precision. Segments slid past each other without friction, locking into new positions with seamless joins. The walls were a dark, matte material that seemed to drink in the light, only to return it as a soft, ashen glow. "It's responding to us," Lena murmured. "Or to you, Elias. Whatever you did when you touched it, it recognized you." My hand still tingled beneath the glove. Under the adrenaline, there was something else. A strange clarity, like a pressure pushing softly against the back of my eyes. Ruiz stepped in front of me. "We advance in order. Stay tight. Comms open. Record everything." His voice carried the calm of a man who had led too many dangerous missions to afford panic. "If this thing is some kind of structure, there might be an end to it. A control room. Something." "A central chamber," Lena said quietly. "A heart." The word lingered in the air. We moved forward. As our boots crossed the threshold of the new corridor, lights activated along the floor, one panel at a time, always staying exactly 3 steps ahead. The illumination followed our progress like a guide that already knew where we were going. "Receiving a signal," Malik said, hunched over his handheld. Lines of unreadable symbols cascaded across the display, reorganizing themselves whenever he tried to lock them. "It's not radio, not standard EM. Some kind of localized field interaction. It's everywhere." "That buzzing?" Harper asked. "I can feel it in my teeth." I felt it too. A faint vibration in my jaw, a low-frequency hum resonating through bone, like the echo of distant engines or an enormous organ functioning somewhere beyond the walls. 30 meters in, we reached a junction. The corridor split into 3 passageways, each identical. Same height, same faint glow, same sense of depth that made distance impossible to judge. The monolithic chamber behind us had gone dark, leaving only the branching network ahead. Ruiz turned in a slow circle, jaw clenched. No markers, no map. We pick one, we stick together. Before he could choose, the structure did it for us. The left and right corridors dimmed, their floor panels fading to black. The center passage brightened, the glow intensifying until it almost hurt to look straight at it. "It wants us to go that way," Harper said. Lena's eyes narrowed. "It is not a person. Don't ascribe intent where there may only be function." "Feels like intent," Malik muttered. We took the center corridor. The further we went, the more the walls changed. They began to shift from featureless matte to something textured. At first, it looked like faint ridges beneath the surface. Then I realized they were patterns, not writing, not images, something between. "Stop!" Lena said sharply. She stepped closer to the wall, her breath fogging her faceplate. "These are node arrays, data structures. This entire hallway is a processing conduit." "Processing what?" I asked. Her answer came over the comm, very soft. "Us." I swallowed, throat dry. As if responding to the thought, the patterns pulsed with pale light. The ridges arranged themselves into hexagonal clusters, spiraling inward like the cross-section of some alien neural tissue. I felt a pressure in my skull, subtle but constant, like being observed from the inside. Harper's heartbeat spiked over the comm, her suit telemetry quietly feeding into our shared channel. "Anyone else feeling that?" Ruiz glanced at his wrist display. "All our biometrics are being monitored. Heart rate, respiration, brainwave activity. Look." Each of our signatures appeared as clean lines on his screen. A moment later, they replicated onto the wall next to us, etched in shimmering relief. It was copying us. Not just our bodies, our responses, our fear. "This is a diagnostic system," Lena said, almost reverent. "We're being scanned, categorized, evaluated." "For what?" Malik asked. She didn't answer. We moved on because the alternative was standing still and letting the thing catalogue us forever. The corridor subtly widened, the ceiling arching higher until it was swallowed by darkness. The floor texture changed beneath our boots, no longer perfectly smooth, but faintly ridged, like the suggestion of pathways running beneath the surface. The hum grew stronger, resolving into something like a rhythm, not random, not mechanical. It was almost like listening to an enormous heartbeat slowed to geological time. "This structure has been running continuously for millions of years," Lena said softly. "Waiting." "Waiting for what?" I asked. "For someone to reach it," she replied. "Or for something to evolve that could be measured." A cold thought slid through me. What if we're not the first? Silence answered, broken only by the sound of our own breathing echoing back at us. We reached another junction, this one different. Instead of 3 identical paths, we faced a high hexagonal doorway framed by pulsing lines of light. Beyond it, I could see a larger space, walls alive with shifting networks of luminous veins. Ruiz stepped forward, but the doorway did not open. Instead, the floor beneath us lit up with 6 distinct concentric hexagons, each ring a lining beneath one of us. The glow brightened, separating us into perfect geometric positions. "Hold," Ruiz said. "No one move." The air thickened, as if the chamber itself were drawing a long breath. Then the questions started. Not words, not images, feelings. A cascade of impressions flooded my mind. Conflict, cooperation, sacrifice, dominance. Memories rose unbidden, my sister's hand slipping from mine on a frozen lake. When we were children, the first time I saw glacier ice under a microscope. The day I signed the contract that brought me to Vostok. Each memory was taken, sampled, and then pulled aside, as if sorted on invisible shelves. I heard Harper gasp over the comm. Malik whispered something in a language I didn't know. Lena's breathing hitched. Ruiz remained silent, but his biometrics spiked sharply. It was reading us. Not just numbers, not just brainwaves, stories. Resist, Ruiz said, voice strained. Think of static, noise, anything. I tried, but the presence moved through me like a tide, ignoring my efforts. It wasn't forceful. It wasn't violent. It was simply thorough, disassembling my life into fragments and examining each piece with clinical detachment. Then, abruptly, it stopped. The glow at our feet faded. The doorway ahead brightened. Only 4 sections of the floor remained lit. Harper looked down. Her ring had gone dark. Guys! The light around her faded entirely, and for a fraction of a second the space felt wrong, like a skipped frame in a video. I turned toward her. Harper, don't move. Stay with us. We'll... She blinked. The next second, she was gone. No flash, no sound, no body. Just empty air where a human being had been standing less than a heartbeat before. My throat closed around a shout. Harper! Malik yelled, stumbling toward the vacant spot. Ruiz grabbed him, dragging him back. Do not leave your position. The presence pressed closer around us like a cold hand. 4 hexagons glowed. 1 had been extinguished. The structure had made its first decision. And for the first time, I understood with perfect clarity. We weren't explorers. We were test subjects. For several long seconds, none of us moved. Harper's disappearance wasn't an event. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't even a malfunction of the structure around us. It was a verdict, and that was somehow infinitely worse. Ruiz forced his breathing steady, jaw set like carved granite. We stay together. No one moves without order. His voice was firm, but the tremor underneath it betrayed him. We proceed to the next chamber, eyes open, comms hot. Malik was shaking. She was right here. She didn't scream. She didn't fall. She didn't die, Lena interrupted softly. We all turned toward her. Her face was pale behind her visor, but her eyes weren't afraid. They were calculating, watching, listening to something none of us could hear. What do you mean she didn't die? I asked. This structure is not designed to destroy specimens, she said. It's designed to evaluate them. If Harper failed whatever criteria it's using, it removed her from this phase of the process. Removed her, Ruiz repeated, incredulous. Removed her to where? Lena looked down the corridor as if she could see through the walls. Somewhere else, another chamber, another part of the system. She isn't gone. She's just rerouted. I swallowed hard. The idea somehow terrified me more than death. If Harper wasn't dead, then she was somewhere inside this shifting megastructure, alone, surrounded by corridors that changed like living organs, and being examined. Move, Ruiz ordered, more sharply this time. Before this thing decides we're stalling. We stepped through the hexagonal doorway. The chamber beyond was enormous, far larger than the previous one. The ceiling was so high that our lights barely reached the top. The walls curved inward in irregular arcs, each pulsating with faint rivers of pale light. They resembled neural pathways, branching and merging and reconfiguring in real time. This architecture, Lena whispered. It's like being inside a brain. Feels like being inside something's throat, Malik muttered. The air had changed too. It felt heavier, thicker, almost humid. Not warm, just dense. As if billions of microscopic particles floated around us, watching, recording, transmitting. The floor shifted underfoot with each step, not enough to trip us, but enough to remind us that the structure was adjusting itself based on our movement. Every time I inhaled, the light nearest to me brightened. Every exhale dimmed it. It was following my breathing, following my heart rate, following my thoughts. We had walked only a few meters when the chamber spoke. Not in words, not in sound, but in a sudden, overpowering sensation that hit us all at once. You are being watched. A cold shiver rolled down my spine. I could feel it, not as a presence behind me or above me, but around me, in the walls, in the floor, in the invisible grid of data that hummed so faintly now, I wondered how we hadn't noticed it before. Ruiz raised his weapon instinctively, though it meant nothing here. "Show yourself," he said. The structure responded. A section of the far wall brightened, pulling our focus toward a vertical plane of metal that began to distort, bulging outward like soft clay pushed from behind. The material stretched, thinned, and then split into 6 petal-like segments that peeled away, revealing a recess filled with shimmering darkness. Malik took a step back. "Please tell me that's not an opening." "It's a display," Lena said. "A projection interface." She stepped closer, and for a moment I feared the structure might swallow her. Instead, the darkness inside the recess resolved into an image. Harper. She stood in a corridor unlike any we had seen. Narrower, darker, more organic. Her helmet light flickered wildly, revealing walls that seemed to ripple like muscle. She was shaking, one hand pressed to her helmet as if trying to block something out. "Harper!" Malik called out instinctively. His voice echoed across the chamber, but Harper didn't respond. She wasn't seeing us. She wasn't hearing us. The feed was one-directional. The projection zoomed closer. Harper turned her head sharply, eyes wide behind her visor. She opened her mouth to speak, but the video fractured into geometric shards before any sound came through. The fragments rearranged into symbols, then into patterns, then into another scene. Not Harper. A different corridor, a different chamber. Organic, pulsing, alive. "Multiple test routes," Lena said, almost to herself. "Parallel evaluations." "Why show us this?" Ruiz demanded. Lena answered without looking away from the display. "It wants us to understand the process." A cold dread slowly crawled up my spine. "This is a testing facility," she continued. "A selection system. It's filtering us, sorting us, judging us." "For what?" Malik asked again, voice trembling. Lena finally turned toward him. "For viability." The word hung in the chamber like a blade. Ruiz's voice hardened. "We keep moving. Standing still isn't helping Harper." So we walked deeper. The chamber narrowed again, eventually funneling us into a long, sloping hallway lined with rib-like structures arching overhead. As we passed beneath each one, it lit up, capturing a biometric snapshot. Heart rate, neural activity, cortisol levels. I could see them displayed briefly on the inner surfaces before dissolving into the structure's memory. "Anyone else feel exposed?" Malik whispered. I felt more than exposed. I felt dissected, piece by piece, thought by thought, memory by memory. Halfway down the corridor, the structure released a low, resonant tone, a single sustained frequency that vibrated through the soles of my boots and into my spine. The lights dimmed, the air thickened. My vision tunneled for a second. "Hold position," Ruiz barked. But the corridor was already changing. Ahead of us, a wall slid downward, revealing another hexagonal room, but only 3 hexagonal panels on the floor lit up. One for Ruiz, one for Malik, and one for me. Lena's remained dark. She froze, staring down at the unlit space beneath her feet. Malik's voice cracked. "Lena, what does that mean?" She exhaled slowly, and though she tried to hide it, fear finally seeped through her composure. "It means I'm not required for the next step." "Like hell you're staying behind," Ruiz said, moving toward her. But the moment his boot crossed the boundary, the lights beneath his feet flared white, and the structure emitted a sharp pulse, like a warning. He stumbled back, startled. Lena closed her eyes briefly, then looked at me. "Go," she said. "You need to see what's ahead." I shook my head. We're not leaving you. You don't have a choice, she whispered. The chamber responded. Her panel dimmed completely, and like Harper, Lena vanished. Not a scream, not a flash, just absence. Malik cursed, voice breaking. Ruiz stood frozen. My pulse hammered so hard it felt like it might fracture bone. 2 gone, 3 left. The structure had judged again, and it was far from finished. For a moment after Lena vanished, the corridor felt hollow, as if something essential had been removed, not just from our group, but from the structure itself. The lights flickered once, recalibrating. The hum in the walls shifted pitch by a fraction, updating parameters. She knew more than she was telling us, Malik said quietly. About this place, about what it is. Ruiz didn't answer. His jaw was clenched so tight I could hear his teeth grind through the comm. 3 panels on the floor remained lit. 3 of us still allowed to proceed. Move, he said finally. We get through this. We find them. We all get out. It sounded less like a plan and more like a plea to a universe that had already made up its mind. We stepped into the next room. This chamber felt different the instant we crossed its threshold. The air was cooler, thinner, tasting faintly metallic, like blood on the tongue. The architecture here was cleaner, smoother, less organic. The walls were divided into hexagonal segments, each one recessed slightly like a honeycomb of dark mirrors. No ribs, no pulsating veins. This was not the organism's body. This was its memory. Rows of hexagonal panels stretched from floor to ceiling, each one dark at first. Then the structure recognized our presence. One by one, the panels lit up. The first showed ocean, not Earth's shimmering blue, but something darker, thicker, under a storm-torn sky. Gigantic shapes moved beneath the surface, too large to be whales, too symmetrical to be natural formations. They rose and fell with mechanical grace, as if the ocean were full of submerged towers slowly breathing. The second panel showed forest, trees with crystalline trunks and translucent leaves that refracted light into shimmering patterns on the ground. Something moved between them, slender angular creatures with too many joints, their movements efficient and perfectly synchronized. The third panel showed a world covered entirely in ice, not Antarctica, a whole planet. A gas giant hung overhead, swollen and pale, while things like luminous worms tunneled through glaciers the size of continents. Malik stared, mouth slightly open. These are other worlds? Ruiz shook his head slowly. We're 4 kilometers under Antarctic ice. This is either some kind of projection system, or I've completely lost my mind. They're not just worlds, I said, because beneath each panel's image, lines of symbols flowed, familiar now in their structure, if not their meaning. Metrics, data, counts, not of planets, of species. The panel nearest us rippled and shifted, its image dissolving into a field of symbols that reorganized themselves into something disturbingly recognizable. A branching diagram, like a phylogenetic tree. Evolutionary pathways, I whispered. This thing is recording entire biospheres, tracking them, comparing them, selecting them, Malik added. I moved closer. When I reached out, the panel did not resist my touch the way the monolith had. My glove passed straight through the surface, fingers tingling as if submerged in cold, static water. The image zoomed, focusing on a single branch of the tree. Formless shapes resolved into something more detailed. Creatures, dozens of them, hundreds. Then it changed, the scene flickered, and suddenly they were gone. Not dying, not decaying, just gone. Their branch collapsed into nothing. A single symbol flared bright beneath where they had been. Rejected. My hand recoiled as though burned. This is an archive, I said. A record of everything it has evaluated. Worlds, species, civilizations. The next panel brightened on its own. This one hit me harder, because I recognized the continents. Earth. But not as it is now. The land masses were different, still shifting. Vast inland seas. Dense forests where deserts should be. The image sped forward through eons, continents separating, colliding, reshaping. Life bloomed, diversified, exploded in complexity. And then, at various points, entire branches of that life were highlighted. A reptilian species walking upright with tool-bearing forelimbs. Mammal-like creatures with bioluminescent skin moving in coordinated hunting packs. Tall, slender hominins with elongated skulls and four-fingered hands. Each time the structure paused, measured, evaluated. Each time, eventually, their branch dimmed and collapsed into the same stark symbol. Failed. "Those aren't us," Malik said, voice trembling. "That's not our exact history. That's variants, alternatives, iterations," I whispered. The panel advanced further in time. Now the continents were closer to the arrangement I knew. Familiar coastlines, recognizable mountain ranges, ice caps, deserts, oceans. A new branch lit up. Hominins again. Closer now. Bipedal gait, tool use, social behavior, fire, art, structures, Neanderthals. Beside their image, another branch glowed. Our lineage. Homo sapiens. Smaller, more gracile, with different cranial shape and skeletal structure. Both lineages grew for a time, overlapping in geography and behavior. The structure slowed then, as though savoring this part. Neanderthal's branch brightened, then dimmed. Our branch flared. The symbol beside Neanderthal's path appeared, rejected. I felt my throat tighten. "Are you seeing this?" I asked. "Yeah," Malik said, voice barely audible. "Yeah, I am, and I really wish I wasn't." Ruiz stared at the panel, expression unreadable. "You're saying this thing interfered, that it decided which hominin would survive?" "I'm saying it's been here for millions of years," I replied. "We found it sealed, but active. Its energy field never turned off. What if climate shifts, extinctions, evolutionary bottlenecks? What if some of them weren't purely natural?" The panel zoomed in on our branch, Homo sapiens. The data stream beneath it intensified, lines of symbols rearranging into tighter formations. I could feel a faint pressure at my temples again, as if the structure were focusing more intently now that it had reached the current test subject. Us. The image sped through the last 100,000 years. Migration routes, population expansions, collapses, wars, cities, industrialization, satellites, nuclear signatures, radio noise. Our entire history condensed into a few seconds of luminous data. Then the projection froze. Our branch pulsed, awaiting verdict. A low vibration rolled through the chamber. The hum we had felt since first contact deepened, shifting into a steady, measured rhythm that matched my heartbeat. "This is not just an archive," I said slowly. "It's a logbook," Malik added. "And a control panel," Ruiz said. "Because at the bottom of the tree, beneath all the branches, beneath all the failed paths and deadlines, a new symbol emerged. Not rejection, not acceptance, something else. Preparation." The chamber around us brightened. Panels slid open along the far wall, revealing another passageway. This one lined with translucent, organic-looking pods embedded into the structure like seeds ready to be planted. Inside each pod, something glittered faintly. Fluid, strands, particles, genetic material. "This is where it keeps the winners," Malik whispered. I shook my head. "No." A realization settled over me like falling ash. "These aren't winners," I said. "They're templates." The structure had not just been judging, it had been collecting. "Why show us this?" Ruiz asked, voice low. As if in response, One of the pods brightened, drawing our gaze. Within it, truncated strands of what I instinctively knew were DNA rotated slowly in suspension. The pattern was almost, but not quite, human. The chamber pressed inward around us. "For what comes next?" I said. And somewhere inside the walls, buried deep beneath millions of years of silence, the system made a soundless decision. Humanity's evaluation was complete. The chamber lights dimmed, as if the structure were inhaling. That faint pressure behind my eyes intensified, not painful, but insistent, like fingers sifting through my thoughts, turning memories over, comparing them, discarding the ones it didn't need. Malik backed away from the pods. No, 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 no. I'm not going near those things. Ruiz lifted a hand to steady him. Hold position. Nobody touches anything. But the structure had already shifted beneath our feet. The floor, once a seamless plane, rearranged itself into long, narrow plates that curved inward like a funnel. The doorway behind us sealed shut with a soft, final click. "We're being guided," I whispered. "Escorted," Malik corrected. "Corralled," Ruiz muttered. The word hung in the air like frost. Ahead, the new corridor activated. Its walls were different, no longer smooth or metallic, but layered with a strange, translucent substance. It pulsed faintly, like cartilage or gel illuminated from within. Shapes moved lazily inside it, drifting like microscopic organisms in suspension. "What is this?" Malik whispered, stepping to the side, visor inches from the wall. The shapes inside responded to his presence. They gathered, formed patterns, mirrored his outline. "Don't get too close," Ruiz warned. Malik stumbled back and the shapes dispersed. A message. The corridor was alive, and it was studying us. We moved forward slowly. Every step triggered a cascade of soft lights rippling down the ceiling. They converged into a circular interface at the far end, another hexagonal arch, taller than the last, its edges lined with faintly glowing runes that shifted like something breathing. A deep vibration rolled through the floor. It wasn't just guiding us, it was preparing the next stage. "This doesn't make sense," Malik whispered. "Why test multiple species across millions of years? Why archive entire ecosystems? Why—" His voice cracked. "Why do any of this?" Lena should have been answering that question. She had known pieces of the truth before we'd even breached the chamber. She had seen patterns long before the rest of us. But she was gone. Just like Harper. Just like anyone this system deemed unnecessary. I swallowed hard. "Because this structure is not a temple," I said. "It's not a vault. It's not a monument to its creators." "Then what is it?" Ruiz asked. I looked at the corridor around us, at the walls filled with drifting genetic shapes, at the pods behind us, at the evolutionary archive that had meticulously recorded entire worlds. "It's a filter." Ruiz frowned. "A filter for what?" "For what comes next," I murmured. The arch ahead brightened. Then it opened. The room beyond was circular, vast, and impossibly complex. Dozens of platforms spiraled outward from the center like petals. Each one held a pod, larger than the ones we'd seen before, filled with fluid that glowed in gentle pulses. Strands of material floated inside, occasionally coiling and knotting into shapes that almost looked biological. "This is..." Malik's voice cracked. "A nursery." Ruiz checked his weapon again, as if the gesture meant anything here. "Stay sharp, there's more going on." There was, because at the center of the room, suspended above a deep pit of amber light, hung a massive structure shaped like a blooming flower made of dark alloy. Its petals were folded in, but each one thrummed with rhythmic pulses. A heartbeat. The entire chamber vibrated with it. "This is the core," I whispered. No, Malik said. His voice was small, afraid. This is the womb. He was right. The air here was different, wet, warm, heavy with humidity. The walls emitted a faint mist like exhaled breath. Everything smelled like rain and metal and something almost organic. A new pod lit up near the center. Inside it floated strands of DNA. Human, but wrong. Do you see that? I whispered. The strands aligned, rotated, and recombined in patterns that were unmistakably purposeful. A new helix formed, similar to ours, but denser, more efficient, optimized. The kind of genome that would outcompete anything on Earth within generations. Oh God, Malik whispered. It's replacing us. No, I said softly. It's upgrading us. Ruiz exhaled sharply. That's not an upgrade. That's eradication. Another pod lit up, then another. Strands of DNA braided into new shapes, each one slightly different, each one a variation, each one a prototype. We are not the final product, I realized. We're the raw material, Malik whispered. The floor beneath us vibrated. The core began to unfold. The petals opened slowly, revealing a glowing chamber inside, filled with hundreds, maybe thousands, of tiny swirling particles. They moved like they were alive, drawn to each other, repelled, rearranged. What are those? Ruiz asked. The answer came not as words, but as a sudden rush of understanding pressed into my mind. Samples. Of us, of the crew, of every species before us, collected, studied, summarized, repurposed. This thing didn't wake up, I whispered. It was waiting for enough data, for a full set of human genetic samples. You mean? Malik swallowed. Us? All of us, I said. Every member of the Vostok drilling team. Our blood, our sweat, our breath. It's been gathering everything since we arrived. Ruiz shook his head. But why now? Why wake when you touched it? Because I had triggered the final requirement. A fully mapped, fully analyzed sample of a human with the cognitive traits it was waiting for. A complete genomic template. Me. As if confirming the thought, the floor lit up beneath my feet, the hexagon glowing brighter around me than around the other two. Malik stepped back, voice quivering. Elias, why is yours brighter? Ruiz's hand tightened on his weapon. What's happening? The answer came in a slow, deep pulse from the core. 6 pods illuminated in sequence. Then a ring of symbols appeared above them. Symbols I had begun to interpret unconsciously because the structure wanted me to. Selection complete. Template chosen. Initiate synthesis. My vision blurred. Elias, Ruiz called. Stay with me. Malik's voice trembled. What does that mean? What does synthesis mean? I took a shaky breath. It means... My voice cracked. It didn't just choose which species survives. I looked at the strands assembling inside the central chamber. It chose the genome it will use to build the next one. Ruiz stared at me. Malik staggered back in horror. Because the pattern forming in the core, the face emerging in its glowing fluid, the silhouette shaping itself from threads of rewritten DNA, was mine. I had never believed in destiny. Genetics, yes. Probabilities, yes. But destiny was just a poetic label for patterns we only understood in hindsight. Standing in that chamber, watching my likeness assemble from glowing threads of alien-coded DNA, I realized I had been wrong. Something older than our species had been steering us toward this moment. Toward me. Malik was the first to break. He stumbled back, breath coming fast and shallow over the comm. No. This is wrong. It cannot be you. It cannot pick one person. That is not how evolution works. Calm down, Ruiz said. His voice was controlled, but his pupils were blown wide. We do not know what we are seeing. Yes, we do, Malik snapped. You heard him. Template chosen. That thing. He jabbed a finger at the pulsing core, at the ghostly outline coalescing in its center. That thing wants to build something from him. I swallowed hard. It is not me. Not exactly. It is using my genome as a base, mixing it with everything it collected from the rest of the team, from humanity, from other species. It is optimizing. Optimizing for what? Malik demanded. The structure answered. The air thickened. The hum in the walls rose by a fraction, and then the room was gone. Not physically, not in any way a camera could see, but my perception was suddenly elsewhere. I stood on a hillside that did not exist, beneath a sky that had never formed above Earth. The air vibrated with distant thunder. Strange animals moved along the horizon, mammal shapes with segmented crystalline exoskeletons catching the light. A voice, not words, but a layered impression, brushed across my mind. Cycle 1. Primary candidate. Insufficient adaptability. The hillside shifted beneath my feet like pages turning. Suddenly I stood in a dense forest of spiraled trunks and translucent leaves. Beings moved between them, tall and skeletal, heads crowned with fronds of sensory tissue that pulsed with color. Cycle 12. Cognitive overdeveloped, systemic instability, termination. Images rolled past faster now. Worlds, species, civilizations, each rising, flourishing, collapsing, each catalogued, each reduced to a final summary. Cycle 22. Aggression index surpasses sustainable threshold. Abort. Cycle 38. Collective consciousness collapse. Abort. Cycle 51. Biomechanical divergence incompatible with planetary biosphere. Abort. I understood. This structure was not the first of its kind. It was one node in a network spanning stars and epochs, all doing the same thing, taking raw life, shaping it, testing it, discarding it, until something fit. The vision shifted again. Now I stood in a primordial swamp, thick fog curling around my legs. Shapes moved beneath the surface, amphibious things with bone plates and bright, intelligent eyes. Earth. Early candidate trial. Non-viable. The swamp faded. Dinosaurs thundered across a plain. A towering predator lifted its head, eyes bright with surprising awareness. Earth. Cycle 5. Neural potential inadequate. Abort. The images accelerated. Mammals, primates, branching paths. Each time, new experiments, new genomes, new attempts at balancing intelligence, cooperation, aggression, adaptability. We were not a random outcome. We were a chosen one, a designed one, and now we were being reviewed for obsolescence. The vision snapped away. I was back in the chamber, knees weak, hands shaking. The core still pulsed with its warped reflection of my features. Ruiz and Malik were staring at me like I had grown a second head. "What did you see?" Ruiz demanded. "Everything," I whispered. "It has been doing this forever, not just here, everywhere. We are one experiment in a chain that stretches back before our planet even cooled. It did not just evaluate us." I looked up at the swirling strands in the pods. "It built us." Malik shook his head violently. "No. Natural selection, geographic isolation, environmental pressures, those explain." "Do they explain extinctions at exact thresholds?" I cut in. "Do they explain evolutionary bottlenecks lining up perfectly with energy signatures that match this thing?" I gestured to the walls, to the floor, to the vibrating air. Every time a line got close but not close enough, it cut them off. Nudged climate, pandemics, asteroid deflection, you name it. It pruned the tree. Ruiz's jaw clenched. "To what end?" "The end is us," I said. "And now that it has enough data about us, we are the start of something else." Another pod lit up. Inside, DNA strands unspooled in patterns I almost recognized. Malik's voice dropped to a whisper. "It cannot overwrite us. There are 8 billion people on this planet. We have nuclear weapons. We have satellites. We have nothing it has not already modeled," I said quietly. "We are not the first species with technology. On some worlds, they reached forms of power we cannot imagine. That did not save them from rejection. He backed away, hands trembling. The core pulsed brighter. A ring of symbols formed in the air above us, like a halo of cold fire. I understood them now, not by translation, but by familiarity forced into my mind. Local biosphere status, sufficient biomass, sufficient complexity, dominant species, Homo sapiens. Assessment, unstable, inefficient, self-terminating. Ruiz swallowed. Self-terminating? You know what it means, I said. War, climate, resource depletion, extinction curves. It has all the projections. It knows we are trending toward collapse. So it replaces us, Malik said numbly. No, I said. They both looked at me. It grows something new from us. The floor beneath us lit up again. 3 hexagons, 3 candidates, 3 samples. The presence pushed gently at my mind again, softer now, like an invitation rather than a search. I felt it combing through my instincts, my fears, my capacity for violence, my impulse toward cooperation. Measuring, balancing, choosing. It is not just picking the best genome, I said softly. It is picking the best traits. It has been sampling all of us. Harper's resilience, Lena's perception, Malik's analytical capacity, Ruiz's discipline, my pattern recognition. It is building something that can survive this planet, this era, this universe. Ruiz stared at the glowing hexagon beneath my boots. And you are its primary template. The petals of the core opened wider. Light spilled across us. Malik snapped. He lunged at me, fingers closing around the front of my suit, helmet inches from mine. Then we destroy you, he hissed. We destroy its template. We break the chain. If you are what it wants, then we take you off the board. He never finished the sentence. The hexagon beneath his feet went dark. For the span of a heartbeat, I saw his face. Rage, fear, desperation. Then he was gone. No sound, no flash, no impact, just absence. The hum in the walls adjusted by a fraction. Secondary sample, removed to alternate protocol. Primary template, preserved. The chamber was suddenly very quiet. Only Ruiz and I remained. 2 hexagons glowed, one brighter than the other. Ruiz's hand fell away from his weapon. For the first time since we descended, he looked genuinely lost. What now? He whispered. The presence answered by opening a pathway that had not been there a moment ago, a bridge of solid light extending from our platform toward the heart of the core. My hexagon brightened. It wants me to go alone, I said. Ruiz squared his shoulders. Then it will be disappointed. He stepped onto the bridge beside me. For a second, the structure hesitated. Then, almost as if amused, it adjusted. 2 paths formed, but only one led all the way to the center. The bridge of light hummed beneath my boots, vibrating in a rhythm that felt impossibly familiar, like it was syncing itself to my heartbeat again. Ruiz stepped beside me, his silhouette outlined by the glow, a soldier walking willingly toward a horizon made of something older than stars. The chamber below us churned with soft amber currents, threads of DNA swirling like microscopic galaxies. The petals of the core were spread wide now, exposing a radiant interior that looked disturbingly like the cross-section of a living organ. Not a machine, a reproductive engine, a species forge. We walked. What do you think happens if we refuse? Ruiz asked quietly. I swallowed hard. It doesn't need us to cooperate. It's already taken everything it needs. And yet it keeps us alive, he muttered. Keeps us walking. Why? Because some part of the process still required consciousness, a witness, a participant, a mind to anchor whatever came next. It wants me to see, I whispered. Ruiz grunted. Then I'm coming with you. We reached the point where the 2 paths diverged. The left path, his, ended at a narrow platform, circular, with a single standing column of dark alloy rising from its center. Its surface was smooth, blank, featureless. The right path, mine, continued onward into the core, where swirling light beckoned like an open wound. Ruiz tested his platform by stepping forward. The structure reacted instantly. The platform lit beneath him, scanning his entire body in a vertical sweep of pale blue light. He stiffened, jaw tightening as the presence probed him. Not violently, clinically. After a moment, the scan dimmed. Above his platform, a ring of symbols appeared. They formed a pattern I somehow understood the moment I saw it. Non-template. Secondary role classification, I whispered. Ruiz huffed. Meaning what exactly? The system has use for you, I said. Just not the same use it wants for me. He stared at the symbols. What kind of use? I hesitated. Stabilizer, I murmured. Behavioral anchor, genetic counterweight. Whatever it is building from me, it needs something to balance the traits, something to ground the extremes. His eyes narrowed. So it needs my discipline, he said, my restraint. It needs what makes you human, I replied, and it wants what makes you different. The bridge beneath me brightened, urging me forward. Ruiz grabbed my arm. If you step into that thing, it will change you. It will change everything. The presence pressed into my mind then, gentle, unyielding. Memories surfaced unbidden. My childhood fear of deep water, my fascination with patterns in ice, my inability to let anomalies go, my relentless curiosity, my obsession with understanding what lies beneath. Traits selected, traits combined, traits optimized. It wasn't random that I had touched the monolith first. It had been waiting for a cognitive profile like mine for longer than humans had existed. I don't have a choice, I said quietly. It opened for me. Ruiz's grip tightened. You always have a choice. Something shifted in the chamber. A deep tremor, slow and resonant, shook the air. The petals of the core unfolded even wider. Light poured out, bathing us both in white-gold radiance. My visor dimmed automatically, but even through the filters the brightness was overwhelming. I felt my pulse accelerate. Then the presence spoke again, not in language, but in a cascade of impressions. Commence integration. Template approach required. Stabilizer standby. Ruiz's platform glowed brighter. Mine pulsed insistently. He stared at me. If you walk into that, Elias, you may not walk out. I know. And if you do walk out, he said, voice cracking ever so slightly, you won't be you. That was the part that terrified me. Not dying, becoming. I'm sorry, I whispered. His hand fell away slowly. Then go, he said, taking a step back onto his platform. But I'll be damned if I let it take you alone. The platform sealed around him like a closing iris, forming a circular enclosure. He was still visible through the translucent surface, but only barely. Ruiz, I shouted, stepping forward. What's happening? A soft hum answered, his enclosure filled with faint particles, dust-like, glittering, alive. He coughed, instinctively raising a hand to his helmet, even though it was sealed. I turned toward the core. The bridge beneath me grew solid, shifting from light to physical matter in a smooth, silent transformation. No way back, no routes, no choices, only forward. The presence pressed deeper into my mind. Images flickered through my consciousness. A new species walking upright through forests unchanged for millennia. Eyes that reflected infrared light. Bones reinforced by lattice structures stronger than steel. Brains efficient, not wasteful. Aggression suppressed. Cooperation enhanced. Curiosity sharpened. Fear minimized. A being humanity was never meant to compete with. A being born from our ashes. A being built from me. I stepped into the light. The world dissolved. Not violently, not painfully, but completely. The The chamber vanished. Ruiz vanished. The bridge vanished. There was only white. Then, shapes formed. Dozens of swirling strands, twisting around me like bioluminescent serpents. They wrapped around my arms, my legs, my chest. They brushed against my visor, leaving trails of light that sank into my vision. I felt something touch the core of my mind. Not forcing, asking. Accept integration. My throat tightened. If I accept, humanity ends. If I refuse, humanity ends slower. That was the truth. The system had already decided the fate of our species. My choice changed only the shape of what came after. No, I whispered to the white void. This isn't evolution. The presence didn't respond. This is replacement. Still nothing. And I won't help you do it. Silence. Then, a low, resonant tone rippled through the void, re-evaluating. The strands tightened. A cold shiver ran through me as the presence examined every chemical nuance of my defiance, every neural signature of my resistance, every subconscious impulse towards self-preservation and sacrifice. It tasted my refusal, measured it, weighed it. Then, integration required. Override initiated. The strands surged, my body arched, my vision dimmed, my thoughts blurred like melting ice. Somewhere beyond the white, I heard Ruiz shouting my name, and then, a different voice, not the presence. A human voice, close, urgent. Elias, don't let it in. Then everything went dark. The darkness wasn't empty. It was dense, layered, full of things that were not light and not sound, but something in between, like standing knee-deep in cold water that held memories instead of molecules. For a moment, I thought I was dead. Then the pain arrived, not sharp, not localized. More like every cell in my body had been unplugged and then jammed into the wrong sockets. Nerves fired in wrong orders. Heat and cold reversed places. Up and down lost meaning. I tried to scream. Nothing came out, because I did not have a mouth. Panic flared, but even that felt muted, contained, like the system had anticipated the reaction and dialed it down. Elias! The voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once, close and distant, human and not. I latched onto it like it was the last solid thing in the universe. Who is that? I managed, though the words felt like thoughts pressed into shape rather than spoken aloud. The darkness shifted, shapes emerged. Not bodies, not exactly. More like outlines made of faint, blue-white light. They floated in the dark like ghosts caught in a static field. One stepped closer. She resolved slowly. A face, eyes, cheekbones, the familiar curve of a jaw. Lena, I whispered. Her expression held a strange calm. Less fear than I remembered, more acceptance. You made it further than we did, she said. I hoped you would. Where are we? I asked. In the capsule, she replied. Not just the structure under the ice, the larger system, the mind behind it. It pulled your consciousness in to finish the integration. The word capsule lodged in my thoughts. Selection capsule, I said. You knew, even on the surface. I suspected, she answered. NASA has been picking up anomalous energy signatures from this region for decades. You do not see the same pattern lasting millions of years, and assume it is an ordinary geological oddity. We never told you because if you had understood before descending, you might have refused. I should have refused anyway, I muttered. Refusal does not matter here, she said gently. It is an input, a variable to be measured. Other shapes moved in the dark. I turned toward them. Harper floated nearby, her features flickering as if the system had trouble holding them stable. Malik appeared further back, his outline fractured into geometric fragments that kept rearranging themselves. You are all... I swallowed. Dead. Harper smiled sadly. Not exactly. Our bodies might be. But whatever passes for this place's conscience decided we were still useful. Data, Malik said. His voice was sharper, more brittle than before. We are snapshots, models, behavior maps. Everything we were, compressed and running on a loop. It took us apart and rebuilt us as algorithms. Why can I hear you? I asked. Why do I have a self at all? Lena stepped closer. Because you are still in negotiation. A fresh wave of cold swept through the darkness, carrying with it that familiar pressure, the presence, the thing behind the capsule, the network of which this Antarctic node was just a single organ. Integration incomplete, template resistance noted, analyzing. Negotiation, I repeated. Lena's eyes met mine. It wants something from you it has not had in previous cycles, a conscious assent, a mind able to understand the process and still walk into it. That is stability. That is endurance. It has learned that sheer optimization is not enough. The last iterations burned too fast. Intelligence without acceptance eats itself. So it wants me to agree to help replace my own species, I said. Harper's outline flickered. It does not think in terms of betrayal, only efficiency. You are raw material with opinions. Another pulse rolled through the dark. For a moment, I saw Earth. Not the Earth above us now, but a projected one. Cities overgrown by engineered forests that filtered pollution in hours instead of centuries. Oceans populated by organisms that scrubbed microplastics from the water and metabolized toxins. Skies clearer than any in human memory. And walking through that restored world, shapes. Humanoid, but not human. Taller, denser. Eyes adapted to wider spectra, movements efficient and unnervingly graceful. They spoke, but not in any language I knew, just layered harmonics that carried complex meaning in a single breath. They were beautiful. They were terrifying. They were ours. Descendants derived from optimal human recombination, the presence impressed into my thoughts, able to endure, able to adapt, able to obey ecological constraints. Obey, I repeated. Lena's light dimmed slightly. It is not just designing a survivor. It is designing a compliant survivor, something that will not challenge the parameters it sets. The vision shifted. Now I saw the capsule from above, the ice, the drilling team, Vostok Station. Tiny, fragile structures sitting atop a node of incomprehensible purpose. And beyond Antarctica, something else. Lines of energy spreading outward along magnetic fields, riding atmospheric currents, seeding the upper layers of the planet with microscopic constructs that looked like dust, but moved with intent. The process had already begun. How much time does humanity have? I whispered. Years, Lena said. Maybe less. The new designs will start subtle, slight shifts in fertility, small immunities. Then, over generations, the divergence grows. It will not need to wipe us out, Malik added. It will just outcompete us, quietly, cleanly, evolution skewed. Rage flared in me. You said refusal is just data. I snapped at the darkness. Then here is more. I will not help you. I will not give you a willing template. You can tear me apart atom by atom, but I will not consent. Silence followed. Then a slow, measured response. Consent unnecessary, resistance preserved, trait valuable. The words, or impressions, or whatever passed for them, sent a chill through me. What does that mean? I demanded. Lena answered before the presence could. It means your refusal is just another feature, she said. It will build that into the design, the capacity to resist, balanced by the capacity to accept once constraints are understood. I felt hollow. Then there is nothing I can do, I whispered. Harper drifted closer, her outline flickering as if she were fighting the process holding her together. Maybe not to stop it, she said, but you might be able to change how it starts. Malik snorted. You think this thing can be negotiated with? It already is negotiating, Harper said. It is showing us visions. It is explaining itself. That means some part of its function includes feedback, adaptation, course correction. Lena nodded. It can incorporate new parameters if you make them part of what it measures. And what should I give it? I asked. More data? Lena's eyes held mine. A condition. The darkness shuddered around us. The presence tightened its focus on me. Clarify. The capsule is afraid of failure, Lena said. Every cycle it aborts is a waste of resources and time. It does not want another unstable line, another self-destructive intelligence. It wants something that lasts. I closed my eyes. Images spun past behind my eyelids. Wars, floods, burning forests, bleached reefs, skies choked with ash. This was our argument against ourselves. But there were other images too. Hands reaching across trenches, aid shipments flown into disaster zones, scientists sharing data across borders, protesters standing unarmed in front of armored vehicles. We were not just the worst things we had done. If I cannot stop you, I said to the presence, then you have to carry something forward. Silence. Requirement, I continued, forcing the word into the structure of thought I knew it would pass. If you build something from us, it must remember us, not as data, not as failed parameters, as ancestors. The darkness rippled with subtle resistance, inefficient. Necessary, I pushed back. You want stability. You want an intelligence that does not devour itself. Then it needs context. It needs history. It needs to know what came before, what it cost, what was lost. You erase that. You create arrogance. Arrogance breeds collapse. You know that. You have archived it on countless worlds. Lena watched me closely. Harper's outlines steadied. Malik's fractured form paused in its constant rearranging. The presence considered. Long seconds stretched. Then, parameter, memory, cost, increased complexity, potential benefit, reduced repeat failure, acceptable. The darkness brightened. Condition added. I exhaled slowly. It was not victory, not even close. But it was a wound in the perfect logic of the capsule, a stubborn human demand embedded in whatever came next. You will remember us, I whispered. More than that, Lena said quietly. It will carry you forward in ways you cannot imagine. The strands of light wrapped around me again. Only this time, beneath the cold, analytical touch of the presence, there was something else. A faint echo of humanity, of choice, of regret, and of the faintest possibility that, even as our species was being rewritten, we might not vanish completely into the void. We would become the ghosts in their genes. The darkness peeled away like dissolving ash, not suddenly, slowly, reluctantly, as if the capsule were releasing me molecule by molecule. The strands unwound from my limbs, my chest, my skull, each withdrawal leaving a faint tingling behind, like the afterimage of contact with something impossibly vast. The last to release was the strand wrapped around my spine. When it let go, I felt myself falling, or rising, or shifting sideways through a form of motion that didn't involve direction at all. Then, a slam of cold, a rush of air. My body snapped back into place with such violence that my lungs seized. I collapsed to my knees on a smooth metal floor, gasping, clutching at nothing, trying to remember how breathing worked. The light was dim. The air tasted sterile. The hum was gone. I was no longer inside the capsule. Not entirely. Elias. The voice wasn't in my head this time. It echoed from a few feet away, muffled slightly by a visor. I jerked my head up. Ruiz stood on his own narrow platform, half enclosed by the translucent barrier. The shimmering dust around him had thinned, the swirling particles dispersing like smoke. He looked older, not physically aged, more like men who have lived through wars no one else saw. "Still with us?" he asked quietly. I tried to nod, but my neck wouldn't cooperate. I think so. Good, he said, because things just changed. The walls around us were dimmer now. The core's petals were partially closed, pulsing faintly, but no longer blazing with that world-eclipsing light. The DNA threads still swirled inside the central chamber, but they moved with slower, more deliberate patterns, as if the system were processing new instructions. My instructions. Did it work? Ruiz asked. I frowned. Did what work? He pressed a hand to the inside of his enclosure. I don't know what you said in there, or what you did, but the entire chamber reacted. The bridge collapsed. My containment changed. And then, everything went quiet. I got shakily to my feet, every muscle trembling. It listened, I said softly. Not the way we think of listening. More like incorporating. Ruiz tilted his head. Explain. I took a slow breath. It accepted a condition, a memory requirement. Anything grown from us must remember us. Our stories, our failures, our chaos, everything. Light flickered along the inner rim of his enclosure, soft, pulsing, almost sympathetic. That's something, Ruiz said. It's not enough. My voice cracked. But it's something. A deep vibration trembled through the chamber. Not aggressive, predictive. The petals shifted again. A ring of symbols formed above the core, slow, orderly, deliberate. I could read them now. Protocol amendment, memory retention added, anthropogenic archive preserved, begin transfer sequence, transfer sequence. The words chilled me. To where? Ruiz asked. Transfer what? Us, I whispered. The floor beneath my feet lit up, my hexagon flaring with blinding white. Ruiz's platform lit too, but not the same color. His glowed a steady amber. Two different protocols, I murmured. Two different destinations. Ruiz's eyes hardened. What's the difference? I stared at the symbols forming above the core. His. Mine. I felt the presence brush against my consciousness again. No longer invasive, no longer interrogating, just informing. Templates, stabilizers, custodians. Ruiz, I said softly, it's not going to kill us. That's comforting, he said dryly. It's going to relocate us. Now he stared. Relocate, he repeated. Elias, where? I swallowed. Someplace else, outside the system. A neutral zone. A boundary world. Somewhere the new species won't reach for a long time. He exhaled sharply. Exile. Yes, I said. Exile. Ruiz's jaw clenched, the soldier in him fighting for order against the incomprehensible. Why would it do that? Because we're resilient, I said. And because we resisted. It wants a clean environment for the new species. No interference. But it also wants us intact. As reference, as witnesses, as insurance. He stared at me. Insurance for what? For the next cycle, I whispered. Or in case this one fails. We both absorbed that in silence. Then the chamber brightened again. The petals of the core closed halfway, like eyelids lowering. The swirling DNA threads accelerated, merging into cohesive shapes. Pods along the walls pulsed with potential life. Forms not yet born, but already selected. A species we would never meet. A species built from the ashes of our own. My hexagon brightened again. The presence pressed once more into my mind, not asking anything this time, just acknowledging. Template archived, conscious entity preserved. Prepare for extraction. Extraction. My vision shimmered. The air vibrated. The floor beneath me felt like it was turning to light. Elias! Ruiz shouted, but I was already fading. I turned to him, forcing the words through the distortion. You're not alone, I said. We'll meet on the other side. He slammed his fist against the barrier. You better be right. A tremor rolled across the chamber. The presence withdrew from my mind with a sense almost like relief, and I felt one final impression, an echo of a thought not my own. Remember, remember, remember. Then the world cracked open. The chamber split into fragments of impossible geometry. Ruiz's shout distorted into static. Light consumed everything, and I was gone. The first breath of air on the other side tasted wrong. Thin, dry, bitter with some metallic tang that wasn't rust, wasn't blood, but something manufactured and old. It scraped my throat on the way in, as if my lungs were not quite built for it. I opened my eyes to a sky the color of bruised bone. No stars, just a dim, diffuse light that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. I lay on my back on rough stone, the surface beneath me warm enough to feel through my suit. For a few seconds, I could not move. My body felt misaligned, like all my joints had been quietly rearranged while I was asleep. Elias. I knew the voice before I saw the man. Ruiz stood a few meters away, helmet off, hair flattened to one side, as if he had just taken the visor off. The wind tugged at his uniform. Behind him, jagged rock formations rose in chaotic spikes, forming a skyline of shattered teeth. He looked as stunned as I felt. "You're here," I whispered. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I woke up. I don't know how long ago. Long enough to walk a bit. Long enough to realize we're not in Antarctica anymore." I pushed myself up, muscles protesting. The gravity was close to Earth's, but not exact. A little lighter. My limbs felt fractionally too strong for the weight they had to lift. The landscape stretched out around us. Barren, rocky, dotted with sparse, low vegetation that looked more like fungal plates than plants. The horizon curved gently, and in the far distance, I could make out the faint outline of a structure rising from the ground. Not a building. A monolith. Hexagonal. Dark. "This is another node," I said softly. "No," Ruiz said, following my gaze. "Look closer." I squinted. He was right. It wasn't a full capsule. More like a broken fragment. A shard of the original design, half sunk into the ground. Inert. No glow, no hum. No pulsing veins of light. Dead hardware. "Where are we?" I asked. "I don't know," he said. "But it's not Earth. Different atmosphere composition, different spectrum," he added, gesturing toward the sky. "My suit systems are half fried, but they still read enough to tell me that." I checked my own display. He was right. Oxygen, but thinner. Different trace gases, different magnetic profile. Exile world. I got to my feet. The monolith shard stood about a kilometer away, jutting from the ground like a broken tooth. Beyond it, the terrain sloped downward toward what might have been a dried riverbed, its edges lined with strange, crystalline growths that caught the dim light. "How long have you been here?" I asked. Ruiz shrugged. "An hour. A day. Time was weird when I arrived. Felt like waking from a dream you weren't supposed to remember." I swallowed. "Do you remember the capsule?" His jaw tightened. "Enough. Not as clearly as you, I think. I did not get the full tour, but I remember enough to know we were not meant to win." "We didn't," I said. He looked at me sharply. "Then what did we do?" "We left a scar," I replied. I told him about the negotiation, about the memory requirement, about the condition I had forced into the capsule's logic. As I spoke, the wind hissed softly over the rocks, carrying grains of dust that sparkled faintly when the light caught them. Ruiz listened without interrupting. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. "So we lost our world," he said. "But we made sure whoever takes it after us will know what we were." "Yes." "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" he asked. "No," I said. "It's supposed to make you feel less erased." We stood in silence, the weight of that truth settling like another layer of dust on the barren ground. After a while, Ruiz spoke again. Have you tried contacting anyone? I shook my head. The capsule cut all links. Even if it hadn't, I doubt we'd reach Earth. Whatever distance we crossed, it's not measured in kilometers. He nodded slowly. So we're stranded on an empty rock with dead alien machinery and no way home. Not empty, I said. He frowned. What? I pointed toward the horizon. At first he didn't see it. Then the light shifted and the faint outline came into focus. Small structures scattered along the edge of the dry riverbed. Not natural formations, angular, deliberate. Ruiz narrowed his eyes. Shelters. Or cages, I murmured. Or observation posts. We're not just exiles. We're still part of the experiment. He grunted. Of course we are. We started walking. The ground crunched under our boots, the texture a mix of sand and brittle shards of something that might once have been glass. The air was cool, but not freezing. My suit reported survivable conditions outside, but I kept the helmet on. Trust was in short supply. As we approached the structures, their details emerged. They were simple, hexagonal platforms, knee-high, arranged in a loose pattern. No walls, no roofs, just markers. Like someone had laid out a grid and then forgotten to build the buildings that were supposed to sit on top. Landing zones, Ruiz suggested. Or gravestones, I countered. He shot me a look. You always this comforting? Only when the end of our species is involved. We reached the nearest platform. Its surface was smooth, dark, and warm to the touch even through my glove. In its center, a shallow depression held a faintly glowing symbol. I knew it immediately. I had seen it etched beneath our evolutionary branch in the capsule's archive. Memory. As I watched, the symbol brightened. Then something else appeared above it, a holographic projection shimmering with unstable clarity. A face, mine, but older, sharper, eyes too bright to be entirely human. The projection looked down at us, its gaze passing through me as if I were just another data point. When it spoke, the voice was mine and not mine, layered with harmonics I did not recognize. Initial log, it said. Phase 0. Ancestral contact confirmed. Ruiz stepped back. What in God's name? I couldn't breathe. The projection continued. Design lineage. Homo sapiens derivatus, generation 1. Origin point. Earth. Post-collapse remediation cycle. Ancestral template. Elias Warren, Daniel Ruiz, and associated crew. Memory protocol active. My mouth went dry. This wasn't the future. This was a message from later. From them. From the species the capsule had built from us. Intent, the projection said. To establish communication with retained ancestral units. To verify experiential integrity. To assess the validity of memory parameter. To ask one question. It looked directly at me then. Was it worth surviving? The wind died. The entire world seemed to hold its breath. I stared at the not quite me hovering above the platform. Behind his eyes, I saw glimpses of another Earth, rebuilt, regrown, repurposed. Oceans cleaned, skies cleared, cities integrated into forests instead of replacing them. And I saw other things too. Tightly regulated lives. Boundaries enforced not by law, but by design. A species that could not rebel against its ecological constraints because the capacity had been carefully tapered. They were free, but only within very specific parameters. Elias, Ruiz said quietly, you don't have to answer it. Yes, I did, because that was the point of the memory parameter. Not just that they would remember us, that they would ask us, that they would have to weigh their existence against our extinction. I stepped closer. The projection watched me with patient curiosity, the curiosity I recognized as my own, shaped into something sharper. Was it worth surviving? It repeated. I thought of the capsule's archive, of failed worlds, of aborted lines, of species that had burned too bright and too fast, leaving nothing but sterile planets behind. I thought of Earth as we had left it, teetering, drowning, burning. I thought of Harper's laughter in the mess hall, Lena's quiet intensity, Malik's muttered calculations, Ruiz's tired resolve. People who would never see that repaired Earth, people whose genes would live on only as shuffled fragments in beings who didn't know their names. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say survival at that cost was theft. But the image of wild forests reclaiming highways and oceans shimmering clear of poison would not leave my mind. Sometimes, I said. The projection tilted its head. Clarify. Some days, yes, I said. Some days, no. Some days you will love your world and be grateful we burned so you could walk in cleaner air. Other days you will hate what was done to us and to you, and you will wish the capsule had never existed. Both answers are true. The projection was silent. Then slowly, it smiled. Not a perfect smile. Not a designed one. A crooked one. Mine. Memory parameter validated, it said. Ambivalence preserved. Uncertainty sustained. Variable maintained. Its form flickered. Thank you, it added. Then it vanished. The symbol on the platform dimmed, leaving only faint warmth beneath my glove. Ruiz let out a long breath. What just happened? We met our descendants, I said. Or a version of them. He scrubbed a hand over his face. And now what? I looked out over the barren landscape, at the broken shard of the dead monolith, at the empty platforms waiting for more projections, more questions, more echoes of the future. Now we live, I said, on this rock, in their memory, long enough to tell this story as many ways as we can figure out. Think anyone will hear it? Eventually, I said. They already did. We stood there, two exiles at the edge of someone else's dawn, beneath a sky that had never known Earth's constellations. Somewhere, far away, beneath 4 kilometers of Antarctic ice, a capsule pulsed quietly, growing a new species out of our bones. They would walk our Earth. They would breathe our air. They would inherit our ruins. They would carry our ghosts in every strand of their DNA. And sometimes, when the wind blew just right through the ruins of their future cities, I liked to imagine they would hear a whisper in the rustling leaves and the crashing waves and the creaking ice. A quiet, stubborn, impossible voice saying, "Remember us. We were here first. We mattered, even if the universe decided it wanted an upgrade." Thank you for watching this video and for spending your time in the depths of these stories with me. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, consider subscribing. It's one of the easiest ways to support the channel and help it grow. Your support means everything. Until the next transmission, stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next story.